Hello and welcome to Exchange Virtual Conference. My name is Serkan Varol. I'm a Senior Consultant and Exchange Server MVP. In this presentation, I will try to give you some information about a new collaboration option in Exchange Server 2013, Site Mailboxes. Let's take a look at our agenda for this presentation. We will start with team sites and site mailboxes, where I will try to give you some basic information. After that, we will move on to setting up site mailboxes, followed by site mailbox lifecycle, which I believe quite important for maintaining a good and clean infrastructure. And we will finish up with synchronization, troubleshooting, and reporting. If you have questions, please do not hesitate to ask in the comments section below. I will do my best to answer all your questions. If you have troubleshooting questions, please go ahead and ask, but also please keep in mind that I'm not a Microsoft employee. Okay, before we start with site mailboxes, I would like to talk a bit about collaboration options that we have in Exchange 2013. I bet you all know about these, but let's get a quick review. Exchange 2013 predecessors like Exchange 2007, Exchange 2010, well, even Exchange 2003 had these three options. Let's start with public folders. Public folders are usually long-term storage of email and other content. This content is shared, discoverable, and searchable with everyone that has access, but as we all know, public folders have very limited conflict resolution. If it gets large and complex, managing, maintaining, and even finding the data can become very difficult. It may sound a bit negative, but we all know how useful public folders are, especially in some situations. So I believe it is one of the best features of Exchange still. Another option we have for collaboration is shared mailboxes, which are typically used for virtual teams. Incoming emails gets in the shared mailbox, replies sent as shared mailbox, which maintains the identity of the team. Sometimes useful to keep the emails for a team in one place. And of course, there are lots of other usage scenarios for shared mailboxes as well. If we move on to distribution lists, I am sure one thing that everyone is familiar with is distribution lists, or distribution groups, whatever you want to call them. Their purpose is to send communication to the entire group. Each member of the distribution group gets a copy of the email in their own inbox. So, which is a great option that we have been using for ages now. Well, okay. Now to the newest member of collaboration options we have, site mailboxes. In general, we can describe the site mailboxes as an option for people working towards a shared project or working together on shared documents. But just keep in mind, as a best practice, site mailboxes' main purpose is not long-term storage or archiving. I will discuss this when we come to retention and life cycles. Okay, so in order to have site mailboxes, we need a team site. So let's talk a bit about team sites. Team sites are mostly for small teams working on projects, and now thanks to SharePoint 2013, it is simpler to create, share, and follow. Team sites lets teams stay connected all the time, keeps the project together in a single shared site shared with the team, which helps team to work more efficient. To increase this efficiency, we can now use site mailboxes. Site mailboxes improve collaboration and user productivity by allowing access to both SharePoint 2013 documents and Exchange email using the same client interface. A site mailbox is functionally comprised of SharePoint 2013 site membership, shared storage through an Exchange 2013 mailbox for email messages, and SharePoint 2013 site for documents, and a management interface that addresses provisioning and lifecycle needs, which lets users to not to go to SharePoint site all the time for accessing content, and lets users to access the emails and documents library from their Outlook or OWA. Site mailboxes are managed from SharePoint via retention schedule, which gives more power to users than Exchange admins on their own content. Another important thing that we know about site mailboxes is legal hold and e-discovery can be used as well for site mailbox data. Okay, so I think we got the general idea behind site mailboxes. How do we set them up? Of course, to have site mailboxes, first we need to configure our organization. Setting up SharePoint and Exchange for site mailboxes is actually pretty simple. But there are a few pre-requirements that we need to complete before starting any configuration for site mailboxes. If we list them, first we need our SharePoint 2013 to be in the same Active Directory forest with Exchange 2013. SharePoint 2013 farm must point to a server that's on Exchange Server 2013. If we have multiple SharePoint 2013 farms, they can point to the same Exchange forest, but most important, to enable the app for site mailboxes on SharePoint, we need to install EWS Managed API. User profile synchronization for farm must be configured, and SSL site collection must be in place. For Exchange 2013 side of the configuration, you need to configure the auto discover properly, and in order to set up site mailboxes, you need the correct RBAC roles. Of course, for our clients to use, client side requires Outlook 2013, or they can use OWA. So let's configure our organization for site mailboxes then. In my test environment, I have a simple setup. One domain controller, one multi-role Exchange 2013 cumulative update 1, and one SharePoint Server 2013. I have already configured the SSL site collection and user profile synchronization service on SharePoint 2013 in advance. I have my Exchange server ready and configured with proper certificates and proper namespaces for auto-discover to work and function properly. Overall, everything is ready to proceed with configuring site mailboxes. In order to configure our organization, we are going to take 4 simple actions to complete the integration between SharePoint and Exchange server. As I mentioned before, first we need to install the EWS Managed API on SharePoint server. I have already downloaded the EWS Managed API, and now using the commands given on knowledge base article, I will start the EWS Managed API installation. I'll just go ahead and click next and finish the installation. After this is completed, we are ready to run set mailbox config script. You can copy this script from TechNet and run it. Be sure that you use the correct parameters. So please read the knowledge base article before proceeding. Also, I'm gonna copy the check site mailbox config script as well. I already copied them to my directory. Okay, so let's run the script. As you can see, parameters are pretty simple. You have to give your domain, you have to give your auto discover URL, and if you want, you can give the URL of your SSL site. Okay, so it's set up now. I will run the check site mailbox config script to make sure everything is set. And all seems good. Now we need to set up our Exchange server with configure enterprise partner application script, which can be found on scripts directory on your Exchange server. Again, be sure to use the correct parameters. This process might take around a minute to complete. It creates a user for partner application, and then it will assign the roles required for it. It's assigning the roles. And the Exchange configuration is completed without errors as well. Now we can enable our site mailbox app from our SharePoint site. So I'll just go ahead and go to my SharePoint site and enable the site mailbox. And it's enabled. As you can see, it's pretty simple to add the application to your sites, to your team site. Let's try to access it. This action will actually now enable the site mailbox for the team site itself. Let's try to access it through OWA. Because this is the first initialization of the site mailbox, at this moment after giving my credentials, it is gonna set up the site mailbox, and as you can see on the screen, it's saying the site mailbox has been created and ready to use. We can now check with Outlook to see if the site mailbox is created and if it can be accessed by the user. Yep, we can, as you can see, it's successfully linked Outlook without any action, and welcome email has been sent to members of the site mailbox. We can also access the documents here. Let's go back to inbox and try to send an email to the site mailbox. I'll just type a subject and somebody and just send it. Here we go. And we received the message in our site mailbox for the Exchange virtual conference. We can also access the site mailbox directly from the SharePoint site via OWA, because this is the first time that I'm logging in. I'm gonna put my credentials. And choose the time zone. And there we go. We have our SharePoint site we can go back to SharePoint site, as well as we can access our site mailbox through OWA. So, okay, so we enabled our site mailbox for our team sites. Showing site mailboxes in Outlook 2013, as you can see, does not require extra action, but we need to keep in mind few things. User mailbox must be on Exchange 2013. Outlook 2013 is required. User in the SharePoint site's default owner or member group as an individual user. The user cannot have more than 10 site mailboxes pinned to Outlook. If they try to pin more, they will not be able to open it up. Site mailboxes can be closed and opened from Outlook anytime, so you don't have any issues if you close the site mailbox on your Outlook. You can reopen it whenever you want to. Okay, that's the part about how to pin Outlook as well. So now let's talk about documents on Outlook and what gets synchronized when you have site mailboxes. Only document libraries are synchronized. Only individual users in the default owner or member group of the SharePoint site will be synchronized. Keep in mind that security groups will not be synchronized with Outlook. Only users who have Exchange mailbox will be synchronized. Of course, from the document library, if you sync a document, not all the information or the file itself is going to be shown on Outlook. Currently only subject, from, last modified by, receive time, document size, checkout to values are going to be synchronized on your Outlook. Also, please keep in mind that if the document library requires additional metadata, check-in or records, the upload will succeed, but the document will be checked out to user, and the user needs to go to SharePoint site to complete check-in of the document. So for example, if you have a site which requires extra metadata for the document library, when you upload it from your Outlook, it will get synchronized, but it will be checked out. So you need to access the SharePoint site, put the required information in, and check in the data on for everyone to see the document in their Outlook or through the SharePoint site. To upload a document from Outlook, it's actually pretty simple. We can just drag and drop a document to documents folder, which will upload the document to the SharePoint site, and it can be accessed from the SharePoint site as well. So I just uploaded the document to the SharePoint site. I'll go ahead and wait for the updating to complete. Okay, it's completed. Now I can access the SharePoint site to see if the document is uploaded successfully. As you can see on the main page, I can see my document. Or I can go to the documents library and see my document in place as well. So everything is set and in use now. Users can access their site mailbox from Outlook or SharePoint and collaborate with their team. But as I mentioned before, it is important to understand and set up a good life cycle of team sites and site mailboxes. But before going there, I would like to add one more thing about site mailbox provisioning policies. Site mailbox quotas can be set by using the site mailbox provisioning policy commandlets in Exchange Management Shell. The site mailbox provisioning policies only apply to the email that is sent to and from the site mailbox and the size of the site mailbox on Exchange server. If you want to configure the document repository or document library settings, they are configured from SharePoint itself. Although you can create, for example, new site mailbox provisioning policies using the new site mailbox provisioning policy commandlet, only the default provisioning policy will be applied to all site mailboxes. You can't apply multiple policies within your organization. The provisioning policies does allow you to set the quotas for the site mailbox itself. By default, these values are for issue warning quota. Default value is 4.5 gig. Maximum receive size is by default 36 meg, and prohibit send receive quota default is 5 gig. Even though if you apply quotas on your databases, even though if the site mailbox is in that database, they will use these values because of the provisioning policy. If you want to change the default values, you can use the set command to set the site mailbox provisioning policy according to your needs. Okay, so let's move on to site mailbox lifecycle. And this is pretty important, I believe. Site mailbox lifecycle has 4 states: create, active usage, closure, and deletion. I have already shown the creation of site mailboxes. The next step is active usage phase. During the active usage phase, the site mailbox can show up in Outlook, can be accessed via Outlook or via the SharePoint site itself. Site mailbox will have an alias and is able to receive email. When the site is not required anymore, site mailbox owners or site collection admins on SharePoint can close the site. This is our third phase. When a site mailbox is in closed state, it is removed from Outlook, but full access via SharePoint is still possible. In addition, it gets hidden from the GAL and generates out-of-office-like messages when an email is sent to it in the closed state. Site mailbox will not be deleted if it's in the closed state. If you want to delete it, you can delete it manually or through the policy on SharePoint itself. The last phase is, after the deletion, is the deleted phase. If the site mailbox is deleted, the mailbox is disabled on the Exchange server, where it will remain until the deleted mailbox retention date has passed and the Active Directory object is going to be deleted. Only IT admins have the ability to take any action on the mailbox at this moment. So, as an Exchange admin, if you want, you can recover it anytime if it's needed. So, we've seen the life cycle process. So let's talk a bit about the site policies. Even if you have a good governance policy in your environment, SharePoint sites can really grow out of control. As you know, requests will come in, site mailboxes will be created when requested, but mostly these site mailboxes are rarely deleted from the environment. If sites are kept when they are no longer needed, they will require storage space, and they might be unwanted for compliance in future. So, how are we going to control these? As I mentioned, we have site policies on SharePoint. You can use the site policies to help controlling this. Site policy defines the life cycle of a site by specifying when the site will be closed, when it will be deleted. When you close or delete a site, any subsites are also closed or deleted. Please keep that in mind. And if an Exchange mailbox associated with a site mailbox, the mailbox is deleted from Exchange when the site is completely deleted. This whole process is a new concept in SharePoint 2013, site closure. So when you close a site, you specify that the site is no longer used, so that the site can eventually be deleted according to a schedule. A closed site does not appear in other places, for example Outlook, Outlook Web App, or Project Server, whichever you are using. But users can still modify a closed site and its content if they know the direct URL of that site. So it just gets removed until it's deleted. Site closure policies controls when the content moves from active to closed to deleted phases. So the whole lifecycle process is controlled by site closure policies. Lifecycle of a site mailbox is controlled through the policy as well. The scope of the policies are sites and site mailboxes. The policy can't be applied to individual items, so you cannot apply it to emails or a single document in your library. Okay, let's say we applied the policy and after a certain time site is closed and we want to disable the site mailbox. We have two options. Either we can use the policy or manually we can disable these mailboxes. To find the site mailboxes that are marked for deletion, we can use get mailbox commandlet and search for mailboxes with MDEL prefix. And to remove, we can use remove mailbox commandlet for the same prefixed mailboxes. Be sure to check if it's the correct mailbox before removing it. So far we talked about the general concept behind the site mailboxes, how to configure them, their life cycle, and team site policies. So let's take a look at how to do some reporting and troubleshooting options and which options we have. As an administrator, troubleshooting is an important aspect of managing a good organization. So in order to troubleshoot mailboxes, we have a couple of options. We have diagnostic commandlets, which I will be sharing in a minute. We can use SharePoint logs. SharePoint logs are typically by default created in every 30 minutes. And when an error occurs on SharePoint site, on the screen you'll see a correlation ID with it. And you can search the SharePoint logs to figure out what exactly the problem is. So it's a good troubleshooting option for us. We can also review the synchronization messages in the sync issues folder for the site mailbox, which is always helpful as well. Or we can look at the site mailbox logs located on the Exchange server. All these references can point out the problem for the solution, which will help us troubleshoot if we have any errors or any configuration problems in our environment. As I said, we have a couple of commandlets for diagnosing site mailboxes. We also have several commandlets for site mailboxes. The most useful ones I think are the get site mailbox diagnostics and test site mailbox commands, especially if you are not the owner or a member of a site mailbox. Using get site mailbox diagnostics with bypass owner check can give a good deal of information for troubleshooting issues about the site mailbox. But in order to use any of these commands, please keep in mind the user that you are using must be granted via role assignment through RBAC. So this role is the name of this role is team mailboxes. By default, this role is assigned to organization management and recipient management role groups. So if you have custom role groups just to manage team mailboxes, or if you want to create a new role to be able to configure site mailboxes, you need to give the team mailboxes role to that role group. Of course, it's not just the admins doing the troubleshooting. Sometimes on the user side we have options as well to diagnostic the problems. The user can use sync logs for errors. They can use site mailbox properties from their Outlook to view which members are synced. They can see when the last sync was or if it happened successfully or not. They can start a manual document or membership synchronization if it's required, and they can also use a send diagnostics option to send logs to their mailbox, and then they can review it, or they can send it to the Exchange admin or SharePoint admins to figure out what the problem is, which will help end users and administrators both to understand the problems with the site mailboxes. So, how about reporting? We have few commandlets for it as well. With the commandlets like get mailbox folder statistics or get mailbox statistics, we can get a good amount of information about the site mailbox usage. We can use these commandlets to get detailed information if we want to. We can also use EWS scripts if you are willing to write one to dig deeper into mailbox to get certain information from it. So we came to the end of our presentation. I hope you enjoyed it. In this presentation I tried to give you a general information about site mailboxes, and I hope you find it useful. Thank you for watching, and please leave a comment below if you have any questions about this topic. If you enjoyed this presentation, please tweet, like, or share it with your friends and peers. Thank you.